began moving into the old Ryobi Singer slash TTI building out on 28. We now have stormwater's located out there, solid waste is located out there, deputy administrators out there, and we have some other things out there. We finished the process of selecting a contractor and an architect to build our new maintenance facility for fleet management. So we're hoping to get that going here shortly so we can have an up-to-date modern fleet facility operations center. In the past, we've had people working on heavy equipment outside, and that's crazy. So that's one thing we're looking forward to that was done last year but will actually be built this year.
And that facility out there also is being used to train Tyrrell County Tech students, and also is currently being used as a landing place for businesses, right? Come in.
It is, and we're also providing some warehouse space for existing businesses, and hopefully that's really going to come together this year. It's a long process, but hopefully we're going to get that done. Then eventually the sheriff will move there, and we will have a soft landing zone, small business incubator, training classrooms. We're trying to work out and have worked out an arrangement for some research and development operations affiliated with Tri-County Tech and the Department of Transportation to go out there. We have talked to the SCORE organization about providing in our small business incubator some seasoned businessmen who have retired and are willing to devote their time to help people get started. So all that's going on. All of that was started last year, but it's really going to be moving out smartly this year.
And part of that whole story too, we were able to sell the other piece of property and use it for...
Yes, in this deal we became the proud owners of the old Pickens TTI facility, and we had no use for it, and so we were able to sell it. And since we had absolutely nothing in it except some monthly maintenance, we're able to sell that facility and take that money and apply it onto projects about purchasing land up in Piedmont, South Carolina, to build an outdoor nature park slash handicapped accessible kayak center. So we're in the process of closing on that property. That took place last year. We also have allocated money to do some more improvements at Dolly Cooper Park. So we've got that going on.
You got that nice field up there that was built too for football.
And we have that new football field, and I think Councilman Davis's priority this year is to try to get a ADA compliant baseball field so the group up there can have all of their baseball activities on that field. So we'll be looking towards doing that. You were there a couple of weeks ago when we put the new bathroom in the East-West Parkway, and we're in the process of hooking that up. And then hopefully we're going to add a play facility out there near that, because we had one side of the East-West Parkway done, then the other side. So now we're filling in the middle on that, and that is a project that was contributed by Brian White, who helped us secure a large grant for that, and Councilman Greg Wooten, who helped us secure money for that. And so we've got those projects going on, so we're very happy about that finally coming to fruition. I think one of the big things past year was TTI moving into their new facility at 81 and 85. And now they have the big sign up on the interstate, and now they've opened up their, in essence, outlet tool store. So that's bringing a lot of people into our area. We were also ranked number 8 on Airbnb rentals, so something's going on.
Well, that TTI, I think people that drive by there don't realize how big those buildings are and what's going on out there.
No, you really need to ride through that process. Those are all public roads, and almost 97% of that money came from grant money. So hopefully we're about to wind that up.
It's like Plus, 1.5 million square feet under.
Oh, it's more than that. And they're already in the process of doubling everything out there. So that's going on. Those two front lots out there, as we've talked earlier, they're trying to find a hotel and a real nice restaurant to go out there on that land where the old truck stop used to be on 81, so we've got that going on. We're doing a lot of sewer work up in that area. Council approved that, so we're getting that done. We're still working on our sewer agreement with the town of Pendleton, the city of Clemson, and Anderson County. I think we've pretty much got a good working agreement on that will take care of the needs for Clemson, Pendleton, and the county for a long, long period of time. We completed this year the study on the jail. As a matter of fact, that was completed last week, and the cost right now after council authorized that study, is $40 million if we're lucky. If you're curious as to why the county needs a new jail, or I've never been to the jail, what do they do at the jail? I think by putting those email addresses and those phone numbers, you can go find out for yourself. You can actually go look, and we'll be happy to provide a tour of that jail facility so people can need. So council will be wrestling with that. You can also wait for the federal government to come in here and tell you to build a $100 million jail.
We don't have any choice at that point.
No, and we don't have any choice not right now, really. When they built the jail, the sheriff had a residence at that jail. That's how far back it goes. I also remember at that time they had the Anderson County Stockade, which is where the Civic Center is. We're out there doing work right now near Dolly Cooper on some parking lot, not Dolly Cooper, but at the Civic Center on some of the parking lots over there. We're also in the process. We've moved the Fireman's Monument, and we're going to put the Fireman's Monument in front of the new courthouse. Hopefully that's going to go up this year, and I'm pretty sure it will be. I'm going to be talking to several veterans groups about the possibility of moving the Veterans Memorial, which is out where nobody can find it and nobody can see it, to a more prominent place in Anderson County. And I've talked to 3 or 4 veterans groups, and I'll be talking to them next week to see what they want to do.
It's an Equinox now, isn't it?
No, well, there's one there.
There's one there,
but there's also one hidden near DSS.
Oh,
and and if I gave you a map, you still couldn't find it.
Right. So kind of get them together, maybe.
The council thinks that it needs to be in a more prominent location than where it is. So it's going to be a busy year. Council's wrestling with the jail. Council's wrestling with so many issues, and we have a pretty dedicated group, not pretty, but a real dedicated group of people who do their homework and are looking to find out exactly what we do. We have budget coming up that has to be passed 6 months from today. We have so many.
Let's talk about that. We got 2 new councilmen.
We have 2
and
new
you never
councilmen.
know when you get new council members how they're going to behave and how they're going to approach their idea of government and everything else. But we ended up with 2 that really seem to be pretty dedicated to Anderson County.
Well, you ended up with 2 who do their homework, they study everything, and they devote a whole lot of time and effort, days and nights, to do this job. And I think they're doing a great job, and I think they're really energized, and they bring a lot of new ideas. And like us raising our fees on things on building codes and subdivision regulations, well, fresh eyes, Mr. Sanders, he looked at it and said, I wonder what they're charging everywhere else. And we looked at his request, and then it came up that we were the lowest people in the world. And so we increased those fees to take the burden off of the taxpayers, the general taxpayers, and the number of complaints we had on that were none. Comments we had was, man, we thought y'all were low. So fresh eyes bring a lot in, and they've kind of meshed seamlessly with everybody that was here.
Let's talk about Green Pond. We were talking about parks, and I wanted to get back. Green Pond continues to be something that has grown, and also plans are for it to continue to grow, and it's paying off. It's
paying off big time, and that thing I told you about, that Airbnb, that number of putting us number 8 in the country, come on, something's happening. They're not coming to see me and you, I promise you that. And like this weekend, this Saturday, today is the last day of the year, but this Saturday we'll have the striped bass tournament. I think this will be the 4th year they've been here, and there will be 100 boats out there in January fishing. They'll be registering Friday. They'll all come in town. They'll all eat, spend time, spend money, and they'll fish Saturday, and it's just great. Our brand is a fishing destination, a fishing capital, continues to grow. And people say, well, all you do is go fish out there. Well, you ought to go out there in the spring and summer and look at the number of people who are just out there.
Great beach just to sit on.
Great beach just to sit on.
Amphitheater in the works.
And hopefully we're going to get the amphitheater out there. Then that leads into another thing. We began work on the dog park. And to date, just from one organization who wishes to remain nameless, we've received $127,000 towards the construction of that. Plus we've received money from other people on that. So we're trying to do a lot of that work in-house during the winter when we can't do a lot of other things.
The no-kill shelter and the continued rise of Dr. Sanders' reputation around the country has grown this year.
Yes, her reputation has grown nationwide. She's in big demand. Scares us to death because we don't want her to leave. And she's really has helped this whole region, Abbeville, Greenwood, Pickens, those areas directly have benefited from her knowledge and guidance. We have an energized staff and some quality people, and we're also working hand in glove with the Sheriff's Department on animal control, and that's a really big blessing to have that done. A lot of innovative things like this year, adopt an older dog, just all kinds of different promotions to keep that going on. But those are the things. We already know we're going to have a good economic development year because a piece of property's already been purchased by a French company, and we're just waiting to work out some details on that. So that'll be another huge economic development announcement. And we have a lot of industry here that is expanding.
Arthrex started hiring this year in earnest.
Arthrex's goal was by this time to have at least 150 people working there on their way to mega growth. First Quality still going gangbusters, and a lot of our Sargent Metal, they're doing real well. A whole lot of our companies. E&I is expanding, an Irish company, switchgear company. We even had the Irish Council General here to celebrate the Irish companies here, and continuing our international training, continuing Anderson County to have more manufacturing jobs than just about anybody else in the state. Not everybody, but we have a high proportion of manufacturing jobs. The new technical high school has opened up a project between 3, 4, and 5, and that's going wonderfully well. And the community supporting that. You got a new president at Tri-County Tech, but Galen was there for a while, so that's been pretty seamless. So there's just a lot of good things that went on last year.
Well, economic development, it's always good to remind people that we do have the most international development in the state of South Carolina.
We do, and we're going to continue that trend.
It's 18 countries, I think, and 51 businesses, something
yes,
like that.
And that's like I mentioned, the French. That's going to be another one. So all of that's going well, but there are a lot of challenges on the horizon. Council went and had 8,000 public meetings on what to do about roads, and I think the consensus is now is to put it on the referendum in next November and let the public decide on do they want to do a penny transportation tax or not. I think you're really beginning to see a lot of the benefits from the gas tax that was passed by the state. We're seeing a lot of benefits from that, and but I had one person who came up here to complain about that with the state. And the road that they rode on had just been repaved with that gas tax money, and I'm going, you don't see it, but I know where you live, and the only way you could have gotten here is to have driven on that brand new road. So we're excited about that.
And that penny, if you look at what the schools have done with their penny sales tax, what they've been able to do and plan ahead, and how the Anderson Institute of Technology might not have been possible without that.
It wouldn't have been possible, but 30 to 35% of that money is going to be paid by people who are just passing through. But that's going to be something we're going to ride on every day. We're also going to continue our close working relationship with towns. We've done several projects with the city of Anderson. I think everything's going wonderfully well. We have a great relationship with them. Pendleton, I know that we do, and we're trying to expand out into other areas. Pelzer, we do a whole lot of work in Pelzer and West Pelzer. We're looking to do some big things in Piedmont. Mr. Davis spearheading that purchase of that land, and you see that there are probably going to be 5,000 homes over there on that river. So that river, after the county beaten for 10 years to say there's a river runs through it right here.
We're going to be talking about this project for a good while.
We're going to be talking about this project for a good while, but I think you're going to see the town of Piedmont, and it straddles both sides. Part of it's in Greenville, part of it's in Anderson. But I think you're going to see a remarkable change up in that part of the world. Powdersville is going to continue to be a situation where we put resources in. We just completed a study on where to put a fueling station up there and the possibility of a sheriff's office substation. So we'll be looking at that study and talking to the people in that area about that. That will allow the sheriff's department to spend more time in Powdersville and not so much time looking for a place to fill up. So we're excited about that.
It reminds us how big our county is.
If you've driven our county, and if you start in Iva and you go all the way to Powdersville, you've got a good hour underneath your belt.
754 square miles, I believe.
It is. We are geographically large, and we're also tuning up for the census. We've already had several meetings on the census because that's a big deal And people say, well, it's the census. Well, you know, it's one of the only things that's in the United States Constitution that every 10 years you're going to do a census. And we don't want, and council's put the resources toward this, we don't want our county undercounted for the simple reason that that means more money for us and more legislative influence and more influence in Washington. And we know we're growing. Our estimates are 204,000. I wouldn't be surprised if we're not low, because as fast as they can build houses, people are moving into those houses.
And people don't realize that money is not going to be saved. It's going somewhere else if our population doesn't get counted properly.
Absolutely. And if you look, and there was an article in the Post and Courier last week, where are people coming from in South Carolina? And it continues to be Ohio, upstate New York. We're seeing people from Illinois. We're seeing people from California. We're seeing people from all over move into South Carolina. And a lot of them are moving to Anderson County. And so they're going to require more services. And they're also bringing in some different perspectives and some interesting ideas. So we've got that going on. But we have
and this summer, council, a lot of these things you're talking about passed a pretty frugal budget, but still was able to try to make these things happen.
Well, I mean, a lot of our recreation stuff, almost all of our recreation stuff, either comes from grant money or it comes from the accommodations tax, which is a tax on hotels. And the more hotels they build here, the more accommodations tax we get. And you know as well as I do that 90% of that accommodations tax money comes from people who don't live in Anderson County. That's almost, in a way, found money. And so we have ambitious plans for next year with that money, more improvements in concert with the city out at the Civic Center. So we've got that going. We know right now that if we had 4 more soccer fields, they would be used tomorrow. If we had 4 more baseball fields, we know they would be used tomorrow. There are a whole lot of good things going on in Anderson County.
And trying to get these things going without raising taxes is what we're talking about.
And trying to do it without raising taxes. And we haven't raised taxes. And have we benefited from some of the growth? Yes. But then you get situations like building this jail, and I've said this before, nobody gets reelected building a jail. This is one of the hard things elected officials get to play with. You say, well, boy, y'all just have a wonderful time. No, it's not a wonderful time planning on a jail. Thursday and Friday, we're going to be sending groups to visit other prisons and jails in South Carolina and in Georgia. So we're trying to do this exactly right and make sure the council has all the information they need to do that, because they ultimately have to make decisions like they have to make the decision on everything. And with a growing county, there are a lot of hard things to do, and you got to pay for these things.
The services increase when the population increases.
It increases. Then people say, well, you know, you really ought to take your foot off the gas. Well, you can't take your foot off. You're either growing or you're dying. You can't stop. And there have been cases where communities have said, we're stopping. And whenever you stop, they say, okie doke, then you start trickling back. And I'd rather be Anderson County than some of the counties, less fortunate counties in the lower part of the state are looking for anything to come down there to nail things together and send. So I'd rather be in our situation.
We also were the first county, we got new voting machines for this year's, we were the first county to buy the extra level security to protect those voting machines.
So now we have electronic voting machines with a paper backup, which I think is much more secure. Because in the past on an electronic voting machine, you want to do a recount, what do? You hit the same button? And you tell me that people can't tamper with electronic voting machines? Well, there's some 10-year-old kids who can tamper with that. So I think this is much better. And we had municipal elections that went off without a hitch. And we've been meeting with the Registration and Elections Commission to get ready for the November elections and the primaries. So we're going to have to be coordinating a lot of things because those machines weigh a whole lot. But I'm very proud that we're one of the first in the state to do that. They have a very good staff. They have a good board, and everything's been going real well there. And, you know, in the past, we've had some chaotic elections in Anderson County. We've even had fraud in elections in Anderson County where people were invited to go spend time in prison.
Yeah, you and I both remember that.
Yes, we both remember that. So I much prefer this than to the old days.
And speaking of honors and awards, our library got honored again. Our librarian, Faithline in the Hall of Fame, and then we got Librarian of the Year with Annie Sutton.
And Annie Sutton got Librarian of the Year, and the dynamic and incredible Faith was honored by going into the Hall of Fame. And we had a wonderful lady who just retired as the assistant director. And Annie Sutton, who's worked there for some time, she's now going to be the assistant library director. But they continue to honor us by what they do at our library. And if you haven't been to the library, or if you don't know what the library